Once Saul was the chosen king of Israel. He was tall, proud, and anointed by God's prophet Samuel. The people sang of his victories, and the nations trembled before him. But pride poisoned his heart. Disobedience broke his crown, and when Samuel died, Saul was left without a voice from heaven. Now the Philistines gathered, stronger than ever, their armies stretching across the plain like a sea of iron. Fear seized Israel. Men whispered in the shadows, "Without Samuel, what hope remains?" Saul sought the Lord, but God did not answer. He sought dreams, but the nights were empty. He turned to prophets, but none spoke. Even the sacred Urim stones gave no light. Silence, only silence. And so the king who once stood fearless now trembled. Desperation pressed against his chest like a sword. He couldn't sleep. In the darkness of his mind, a forbidden thought rose. If God will not answer me, then I will seek another voice. That night, the camp of Israel lay in uneasy silence. Soldiers tried to rest, but fear gnawed at them. Only Saul did not sleep. Dressed in his armor wrapped, he rose quietly from his tent. 2 servants followed him, their faces pale, for they knew where the king was going. The road to Endor was steep and shadowed, winding through rocky hills. The moon hung cold above them, casting long, twisted shadows across the ground. Each step felt heavy with guilt. Each whisper of the wind sounded like Samuel's voice crying from the grave. Saul walked on with a step of uncertainty. He had forbidden mediums and spiritists in Israel long ago. Yet here he was, seeking the very darkness he once condemned. His servants dared not speak, but their eyes revealed the same question: is this truly our king? At last, in the distance, a dim light flickered. A lonely house crouched at the edge of the village. It was the dwelling of the woman with a familiar spirit. The closer they came, the colder the air seemed to grow. Dogs barked in the distance, then fell strangely silent. Saul stopped, his breath trembling. Before him stood not only the witch's house, but the last doorway to his own destruction. The witch, with her arms wide open, spoke some words into the spirit. The witch of Endor had already saw the king in the spirit. She stood at the door, staring into the soul of Saul as he walked closer. The wooden door creaked as Saul pushed it open. Inside, the air was thick with smoke from a burning lamp, its flame bending and swaying, as if it knew a king in disguise had entered. Strange symbols were carved into the walls, herbs hung from the ceiling, and the scent of death seemed to cling to the room. The woman looked up. Her eyes were sharp, weary but full of secrets. "You know the law," she hissed. "Saul himself has driven out the mediums and the spiritists. Why do you risk your life to come here?" Saul's voice cracked, desperate. "Do not be afraid. I swear by the Lord, no harm shall come to you. Call up for me the one I shall name." The woman studied him in silence, her suspicion deepening. Her hands trembled slightly, for even in the shadows, she felt the weight of his presence. Saul leaned closer. His words fell heavy in the room. "Bring up Samuel." At once, the woman recoiled as though struck by lightning. Her eyes widened in terror. The flame flickered violently, shadows stretching long and twisted across the walls. She gasped, her voice breaking. "Today you come to the forbidden." And the king, trembling, fell to his knees in the witch's house. A king begging for the voice of the dead. So she invoked the spirit. The room grew colder. The flame bent low, as though bowing before an unseen power. The witch's eyes rolled with terror, her hands trembling as she screamed, "I see a spirit rising from the earth." Saul's voice shook. "What does he look like?" The woman's lips quivered. "An old man covered in a mantle." At her words, Saul collapsed forward, his body trembling violently, for he knew it was Samuel. Then in the gloom, the figure appeared, pale, otherworldly, draped in the prophet's robe. His presence filled the room like thunder before a storm. The witch hid her face, but Saul fell on the ground, face down, broken and weeping. And the voice came, stern and heavy with eternity. Why have you disturbed me to bring me up? Saul's cry cracked the silence. I am sore distressed, for the Philistines make war against me, and God has departed from me. He answers me no more, not by prophets, not by dreams. Therefore I have called you, that you may tell me what to do. But Samuel's voice was not comfort, it was judgment.
Why do you ask? Seeing the Lord has departed from me, become your enemy. The Lord has torn the kingdom out of your hand and given it to David. Because you did not obey his voice. Tomorrow you and your son shall be with you. And the Lord shall deliver Israel into the hands of the Philistines.
The words fell like swords. Saul's body shook violently, then collapsed full length upon the ground. His strength left him. The prophecy of his death hung in the air, chilling every soul in that house. So the next day Saul prepared for battle. With the every step came the weight of prophecy. The battlefield roared with chaos, the clash of iron, the screams of the wounded, the relentless thunder of Philistine chariots. Dust and blood filled the air. On the slopes of Gilboa, Saul's sons stood like pillars around their father, each one fighting with the courage of lions. Jonathan, who was Saul's firstborn, the faithful and brave friend of David, fought along his father with pride. His sword flashed as he cut down soldier after soldier, refusing to yield. But then an arrow struck deep into his chest. He staggered, his eyes still fierce with love for Israel. He fell to his knees, gasping for breath, his final whisper lost in the storm of war. Jonathan, the prince, who should have been king, lay lifeless in the dust. When Saul saw Jonathan gasping for breath, he fought like a wounded dragon. Saul's cry pierced the battlefield. Jonathan, my son, my God, have forsaken me. But there was no time to grieve. The Philistines closed in like wolves. Then Abinadab, fierce and unyielding, stepped forward to shield his father. He lifted his shield high, blocking spear after spear, but 3 blades pierced him at once. His shield fell, his knees buckled, and his body collapsed beside his brother. Another son gone. Malchishua, the youngest, fought with desperate fury. His sword hand trembled with exhaustion, yet he struck down those who came against him. His eyes met his father's for a fleeting moment, eyes full of fear, yet full of love. Then a javelin found him, striking through his side. He cried out once, and then was silent. One by one, Saul's sons, his strength, his pride, his future lay broken before him. The crown of Israel was shattered not by iron alone, but by prophecy fulfilled. Saul stood among the bodies, arrows piercing his own flesh, his armor heavy with blood. He swayed, his soul crushed beneath grief. The enemy swarmed, but it was not the Philistines who defeated him. It was silence. It was rejection. It was the voice of Samuel echoing in his mind. Tomorrow you and your sons shall be with me. The king's knees buckled. His heart, already torn by loss, could bear no more. He turned to his armor-bearer, tears in his voice. Thrust me through, before these uncircumcised come and mock me. But the man would not. He wept and shook his head. And so Saul, the anointed of Israel, placed his sword upon the earth, leaned upon it, and with one last look at his fallen sons, fell upon his blade. The crown was gone, the dynasty ended, and the mountains of Gilboa drank the blood of a king and his sons. The story of Saul's downfall and the Battle of Gilboa teaches us certain powerful lessons, such as the danger of forsaking God. Saul started with anointing, but ended in silence because of disobedience. For it's not how you start that matters, but how you finish. Even kings fall when they walk away from God. It also points out the price of desperation. Instead of humbling himself, Saul ran to forbidden doors, witchcraft. When God is silent, don't run to darkness, wait on him. Desperation can drive us to destruction. This shows that your decisions today affect generations tomorrow. Fathers, leaders, parents, what you do echoes in your children's lives. So Jonathan, who was faithful and noble, fell not for his own sin, but because of his father's disobedience. Because sometimes innocent people suffer because of the failures of leaders. Leadership carries weight. If you fall, you don't fall alone. The most chilling part wasn't Samuel's ghost, it was God refusing to answer Saul. The greatest judgment is when heaven no longer speaks. Don't take the voice of God for granted.